Okay, so in this video, we're going to take a little bit of a deeper look at exceptions and what they are and how to use them. So if you have not already watched the introduction to exceptions video, I'd encourage you to start there. But what we're going to do in this program is try to take user input, a file saved on the computer, and process it. So the main method is very straightforward. We create a scanner that reads from the keyboard. We print out to the console for the user to enter a file name. And then we take the next line that's entered in and use it to call this method, which is called file printer, that takes in a file object. And that file object takes as a parameter the file name that was entered in. So I have two files that are stored in the project folder. So it's at the same level as like the source and the build folders. One is called sample, and here's the text file sample. And another is called numbers, which has the word cat nestled in the middle of it. And we'll explain why that's there and why that might cause a problem in a moment. So let's run this and see what it does. So first thing first is I'm going to run it and enter in sample.txt. So here is the first sample text file. You can see file printer just prints it line by line to the console. And we'll run another one, and I'll do numbers.txt. And again, file printer prints it to the console. Now, the reason I bring this up, or we're bringing up file reading and writing, is because I'm required to try to do this in the context of a try-catch loop. So we scroll up a little bit and look at how this method was written. I have a try statement right at the beginning, and in there it says make a new scanner, and this scanner is actually scanning a file, not the keyboard. And then while that scanner has the next line, simply print it. Now, if I try to take this try and catch away, I'm going to get an error. So this error says unreported exception, file not found exception must be caught or declared in order to be thrown. So what's happening here is this scanner constructor that takes in a file object says, hey, there's a very likely chance that you're going to ask me to scan a place where there's not a file. There's a likely chance that I'm going to throw an exception, and that exception's got to be caught in order for me to be able to do my job. So I had to try catch up there. Let's see if we can put it down here. Try to run this method and then catch exception B. I will print it out. System out the print line B. All right. So if we capture it there, it's still giving me the error up here. Still doesn't really like it. Let's try running it, make sure it's just not like a build issue. And it's still saying that there's an error there. So this line really wants to be sure that it's within a try and catch. So let's move these back up top, back to where we were, and we'll say try to run this scanner. Now, I have to keep in mind as well that if this might not work, I can't put my catch statement here. So even though I would be catching the exception that's thrown, I'm trying to use a file scanner that's defined in a code block. So now I'm going to get this error of, well, there's a chance the file scanner might not work, so I'm not going to be able to use it if it doesn't work. So we're going to have to take that catch and the end of that try block and bring it down below all this. So now that we got it working, let's see what happens if I run the program and still doesn't like what I'm doing. Let's see. Oh, I left one of our curly braces down here. That should do it. But let's see what happens if I type in a wrong file name. So for example, if instead of sample.txt, what if I just put in sample as java.io file not found exception, sample, the system cannot find the specified file. So it's processing that error without crashing my program. If I had something printed out down here, I could still do it. So let's change gears a little bit. We're going to try a different method now. So this is the file printer method. Now I have a file adder method. And the file adder method takes in a file type, and it starts by creating a variable sum, and at the end of the method returns that sum. So this has a return type of int. And again, we're going to make a file. We're going to say while that file scanner dot has next int, add that int to the current sum. Now, that looks like it works fine. There isn't an issue, except there's a chance that I might have a bad input type or a bad line. So my expectation or my precondition for this method might be that we'll do at param precondition. And we might say that the file f contains only numbers. So if I want this file to contain only numbers, then presumably, once I'm done this while loop, when there's no more ints left, there's nothing left in the file. So if I look at the file scanner and there is something left, I'm going to say, you know what, something's off here. It's not working the way I expected. There's some kind of problem. So I'm going to throw a new exception with the comment that unexpected input in file f.name. So let's try running this and see what happens. So we're going to go down here. Instead of doing the file printer method, we're going to do the file adder method. And it's going to ask me for input. And we're going to wait. So I'm going to try first a sample.txt, which remember is all text. There's no numbers at all. So it should break. Or not break, it should throw that unexpected input in file sample.txt. Well, that's great. That's what I wanted. Let's also do, as a quick test, result equals. So we're going to actually catch this result and system.out.println result. Okay. And what does not like to reach into the file while parsing? Oh, did I accidentally delete something? No, that all looks good. All right, so we'll just try to get that on the build. Let's see. Sometimes Netbean gets a little upset with stuff, even though there's nothing wrong. See, all good. So if I were to run sample.txt now, I'm going to get 0 because obviously sum is 0. Let's see what happens when I run numbers. So numbers.txt, and I get 274. Now, that's all well and good, except that if I go into numbers, my sum is not 274. And to prove this, let's make this a little bit simpler. I'm going to put 1, 1, or 1, 1, 1, 1, then cat, and then I have a couple other numbers. I'm going to save this file again. All right. And let's try running this again. And I'm going to run the file name numbers.txt. You get the answer 4. Now, the sum of all the numbers in that file is not 4. There's missing numbers there. If we go back into it, you can see that I had 4, then the word cat, and 12, 37, 10. So the way that this method was written, which is perfectly fine given that precondition, makes an assumption that there will be no other input in there. If I were to take out this exception here, or me throwing a new exception, so actually creating or identifying an exceptional case and sending out the warning, if I were to run it again and putting in numbers.text, I would see the number 4. It works fine. It doesn't break, even though in numbers there's a lot more. That's an older version. There's a lot more than the number 4, and this thing cat in the middle is breaking it. So the reason that we throw this exception here is to say that even if it didn't crash my program, there's something going on that's odd. So this exception gives me a warning that I can then go back and read. So numbers.txt and say java.lang.exception, unexpected input in file numbers.txt. Now, as a program, I'd say, that's strange. It's supposed to be only numbers. Let me go and take a look. I go and see that someone had inadvertently typed cat in there. I'm going to delete that line, save it again. And now when I go to run my program and write numbers, I can spell it right, numbers.txt, I now get the correct sum, 63, and the lack of that exception gives me a little bit more confidence that it worked appropriately. So for exceptions, there are 3 main parts, not all 3 of which you always need to use. That first main part is the try statement. This says, try to run a block of code where there may be a problem. And you'll notice that in this try block, there are two places where I could have a problem. I could have had a problem with the name, giving the wrong name to the scanner. I could have also had a problem over here. The catch statement says, hey, you just ran a sensitive part of the code. Catch any exceptions that may have came through. Now, if I change this to a file not found exception, I'm going to have a problem because this is going to throw a regular exception, not a file not found exception type. So this is where polymorphism comes in hand. By using the general exception case here, it makes it a little bit easier to catch any exception that may have been thrown. But the catch statement is actually handling the exception, printing out an error message, or doing whatever you need to do in order to handle that exception. And finally, the throw statement is when you identify something that goes against the assumptions of the program, and you decide as a programmer, I need to get out of here and I need to give myself an error message or give whoever's looking at the program an error message. So you create a new exception, and the exception is an object. Its constructor takes one parameter, text, and you can put in there, hey, there was unexpected input in file f.getName. So that is a little bit more in-depth look at exceptions, try, catch, and throws. I hope that it was helpful to you. Bye now.